you're looking for me to recommend some lower price synthesizers, you could look into. Some low priced synthesizers. I would recommend if you're trying to learn synthesis, or you're interested in learning synthesis and or keyboard in general, I would recommend a subtractive synthesizer of some sort, something that has knobs on it that you can like change the parameters and stuff with, because if you just buy a synthesizer that is all under the hood, where everything is under the hood, meaning that like it's just all presets loaded onto the machine, you won't really learn how to synthesize. So to that effect, I would suggest something lower priced. I mean, I've always recommended in the past the micro Korg, because it can be a little intimidating, I guess, but I mean, it should be a little intimidating because it is the micro Korg after all, micro Korg, but it's like fairly versatile, and honestly, it's like there are a 100 million jillion of them out there that have been made, so you can get them. They're a dime a dozen. You can get them secondhand for like a couple $100 probably, and they're surprisingly versatile for such a teeny little thing. But if you want a full-size thing, like full-size keys, because they have mini keys, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've shopped like entry-level synthesizers. Honestly, look for something that you know what another good one is? Most things with like mini in the name are actually probably good, a good bet. Like mini brutes, the Arturia mini brute. What else is there? What else am I thinking of on the subject of synthesizers, for like entry-level synthesizers? Yeah, it's good point. Bibo Palupa Bopa. Sorry, butchering your name. You would probably want a polyphonic synthesizer to start off with, because you want to learn how to play the keyboard as well, I would assume. Monophonic is great for certain applications, of course, but like I would also recommend there are lots of sweet, like really powerful boutique synthesizers, meaning like little modules that you can hook up to MIDI controllers and whatnot. But I wouldn't recommend that to start off with, because learning MIDI is learning MIDI would come a little bit after learning the, I think like if you don't want to confuse yourself with MIDI if you're talking about your first synthesizer here. Yeah, so Zanzibar Don't Cry Zanzibar got a MIDI controller. If it's got USB MIDI, then it's plug and play. So hopefully it has a USB out on it. But if you're dealing with like regular like 5-pin MIDI, you're gonna need like a MIDI interface or a synthesizer that has MIDI out or MIDI in on it rather. But you know what? Tangent over. I'm gonna say, look into a microKORG. That was my first synthesizer. My first yeah. And it's surprisingly versatile. It's bang for your buck. You can also plug it into. You can get a MIDI controller with full size keys and control the microKORG if you want with a MIDI controller. If you do require full size keyboards, full size keys. Anyway, I love talking synths. So thanks for the question, but Bailey B asking about more synthesizer questions or requesting more synthesizer tangent. Well, what is there to say? What should we talk about here? So you know what? I kind of danced around the MIDI talk earlier. So okay, I need to just okay. I want to make sure that I don't fuck up the, there we go. I don't want to fuck up the acronym. So MIDI, I'll give you a little crash course on MIDI. So MIDI it has been around since the dawn of synthesizers, basically. And it's a very basic kind of technology that hasn't even really changed since it was invented, because it's just functional. So what MIDI is, MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. I can never remember that. Musical whatever interface. Whatever. It's called MIDI. So MIDI is this thing here. This is a MIDI plug, folks. 5-pin MIDI. Bam, there, you see that? Got 5 pins in it. So, if you want to use something, if you want to control another instrument with a MIDI controller, like provided that they both have MIDI in and out. So say you have a MIDI controller, which are cheap. MIDI controllers are cheap, generally speaking. So you have a MIDI controller that you want to use to control a module synthesizer. So what you would need is you'd need one of those cords there, a MIDI cable, 5-pin MIDI to 5-pin MIDI, and you would put MIDI out from your MIDI controller. So, like, for example, here, I'll let you take a peek right here. See that? This white keyboard is a MIDI controller controlling this up here, which is you can't really see it very well, but it's a Behringer Model D module. Behringer. Oh fuck! I fucked up the camera, didn't I? So there are no keys on that Model D, that boutique thing up here. There are no keys on it, so it needs to be controlled by something. So I've got a MIDI cable. It's going from the MIDI out from my MIDI controller into the MIDI in that thing. So that little module up there is the thing that's actually making the sound. It's the thing that's generating the sound. And what the MIDI is doing through that MIDI cable, it's just transmitting the information of what note what note the actual synthesizer should be playing. So when I hit a C on this MIDI controller, it's telling that little module to play a C. And now that's the beauty of it, because I could take this white keyboard here, this MIDI controller, and I could plug it into like any synthesizer that has a MIDI in. and I could control any synthesizer with this white keyboard if I wanted to. So with that, I mean, it's not that complicated really. It's MIDI out goes to MIDI in, and if you understand that, then you can buy, like, it opens up so many possibilities, because you can get all of these amazing synthesizers in like these little boutique forms, in these little modules, and it makes those are way cheaper than to get a full-size synthesizer. So with one MIDI controller, you could be controlling all sorts of shit with it. So if you're interested in getting a synthesizer, I would highly recommend like take a look at let's see, like the Jupiter maybe. So Roland made a whole bunch of the company Roland made a whole bunch of remakes of legendary synthesizers in like boutique form. So they're these little tiny. Actually, I have one right here. Oh, can't reach it. We got the D5 right here. You see that? So this little guy, this is like a remake of it, and if I gotta put my headphones back in. So the original instrument, the original D5 is like, you know, thousands of dollars, but that remake, which sounds very, very close to the original, just needs to be controlled through MIDI to create sound. So that thing is like $300. So instead of spending like $3,000 or $2,000 on like a crazy ass real antique synthesizer, antique, I should say vintage, you can just buy the module and then control it with a MIDI controller, which you can get for like $150, $100 maybe. You know, it's fun. It's, you know, it's just MIDI talk. You know, MIDI talk. You know, I'm a bit of a MIDI mid myself. Anyway, welcome to the world of synthesizers. Very cool.